Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video, and today guys I'm going to be taking a look at the Deathstrike missile launcher. Now I said I would never review the Deathstrike missile launcher, but after years of the same commenter asking for the video in practically every single one of my tactics videos, I have finally caved in. The channel broke before the guard did. So, you know who you are. This video, it's for you. I'm going to be doing an in-depth tactical analysis in fine detail of the Deathstrike missile launcher. So without further ado, let's get on with this video. So the Deathstrike missile launcher is a heavy support unit, and its battlefield role is long-range artillery support. It's meant to sit at the back of the board and fire its one-shot missile at a enemy unit, and it can just absolutely devastate, in theory, large areas of the battlefield. It's a small nuke, guys. That's what it's meant to be. Now, unfortunately, its competitive level is very low. Now, that's actually being quite generous. I would go as far as to say as it has no right to be in a competitive game. It's very suitable for fun and fluffy, less serious games, but you do not really want to consider this unit in your competitive army lists. Now, the reason for that is because it has, as I've mentioned, got a lot of wacky rules surrounding it. So we'll go through the stats of the Deathstrike now and its weapon rules, and you'll get a feeling for why it's not really suitable for competitive play. The short answer is that, quite frankly guys, it's just not reliable enough. But we'll go into it in a bit more detail than that. So the Deathstrike is your typical Imperial Guard vehicle. It's got movement of 12 inches, weapon skill 6+, it's got a ballistic skill of 4+, that degrades down to 5+ and 6+ when the unit starts taking wounds. It's got a strength 6, it's got a toughness of 7, it's got 11 wounds, so that's actually slightly more than your typical Chimera hull, but fairly standard for things like your Manticore and your Wyvern and your Hydras. And it has 3 attacks base, and when it degrades to its second bracket it gets D3, and when it degrades to its last bracket, which is 1 to 2 wounds, it has 1 attack in close combat, leadership of 7 and a save of 3+. Very standard Imperial Guard vehicle. Now, the Deathstrike model is equipped with a single Deathstrike missile and a heavy bolter. Now, you can't swap the Deathstrike missile out for anything, but you can swap the heavy bolter for a heavy flamer, and you can also take items from the vehicle weapon list, so you can give it things like track guards or a heavy stubber or a hunter killer missile. Now, the Deathstrike missile is the main reason you're here. Now, it has a range of 200 inches. It can hit anything on a standard 40k board. It fires heavy 3d6, so it's got a lot of power. That's an average of 10.5 shots. Now, it doesn't have a strength, AP or damage value. Instead, you've got to go to the abilities part of this weapon. This weapon can only be fired once per battle. This weapon can target units that are not visible to the bearer. Each time you hit the target with this weapon, it suffers a mortal wound. After resolving all damage on the unit, roll a d6 for every other unit within 6 inches of the target unit, and on a 4+, that unit also suffers d3 mortal wounds. So, on the surface of it, that sounds really good, doesn't it? Oh my god, all you have to do is hit the enemy, and it finally gets past the issue of how did the Deathstrike used to handle invulnerable saves, which kept cropping up in previous editions. If you hit them, they take a mortal wound, and then if they're all clumped up, if they're castling up, which a lot of enemies do like to do, like Marines and whatnot, then you don't need to worry, because on a 4+, it will start jumping to other units. It sounds good, in theory, but let's take a look at the problem, which is the special rule it has called the Hour is Nigh. Now, this is an ability which essentially cripples the Deathstrike. You see, if you could start Deathstrike off on turn 1 and it could launch its missile and then it was done, that would be great. But unfortunately, it can't do that. The Deathstrike missile cannot be fired normally in the shooting phase or during Overwatch. In one of your shooting phases, if you wish to fire the Deathstrike missile, roll a d6 and add the battle round number. If the result is 8 or more, you can fire the Deathstrike missile during this shooting phase. For example, in the third battle round, a roll of a 5+ will be needed to fire the Deathstrike missile. So that means you cannot fire it turn 1 because you roll a dice, you get a 6, that equals 7, it doesn't go off. You can't fire it turn 2. Well, you can potentially fire it turn 2, but you need a 6. Turn 3, you need a 5. Turn 4, so we're past the halfway point, you need a 4. And then turn 5, you need a 3. And then the game might just end. You see, you can't guarantee that this weapon will only automatically launch if you get to turn 7. But there's a good chance that you just keep not rolling the dice that you need to roll to get, even with command point rerolls. The problem with this weapon is that there's a really, really high likelihood that you're never going to get to fire it. Because either you just don't roll luckily enough for it, which can happen. I mean, even by turn 4, you've only got a 50-50 chance. Okay. Or, more than likely, it'll just get killed. Because it does actually have fairly good damage output for its points cost. It actually only costs 133 points with the heavy bolter, and for the ability to do an average of 5 mortal wounds even without the stratagem vortex missile, which we'll get into in a bit. So it has some okay damage output for its cost, but the problem is that you're never going to get to fire it. Now, actually, the damage output is okay. It's only, I mean, if you go off the averages, it's 10.5 shots, which, if you hit on a 4+, there's only 5 mortal wounds. Now, you could boost it by taking it with Destroyan and giving it Regimental Pride, or taking Cadian and going overlapping fields of fire. You could make it work that way, but even then, you're only looking at about 7 mortal wounds, which is not a huge amount. I mean, a Primaris Psyker will do the same mortal wounds roughly over 3 turns for 46 points, and it can do that from turn 1 because it'll just do it. You can just smite. Now, and the problem is that even if you launch it to a big blob of enemy units, it's only on a 4+ that it's going to start jumping, and even if it does, it's only D3 mortal wounds. It's only like a smite. It's just not that good. And that really is the problem with it. It's just totally unreliable. Now, we'll skip ahead to the related stratagems, because there is a way that you can make this thing do a bit more damage. Okay, and that's with the stratagem called Vortex Missile. Now, this is kind of mandatory when you're using the Deathstrike missile launcher. Okay. So it costs 3 command points. So straight away, you're like, flipping heck, this thing, it's the most expensive, it's pretty much the most expensive stratagem in the whole of the Guard Codex. The only one that's of equal cost is if you start taking like 2 extra relics. Okay. Now, you use a stratagem before you fire a Deathstrike missile. You can reroll failed hit rolls for this shot. In addition, add 1 to the roll made to determine whether other units within 6 inches are hit. If a model is wounded but not slain by the attack, roll another dice. On a 6, the model suffers a further d6 mortal wounds. So it's okay, right? So you do get +1 to hit, which is good. And then you could combine that with like Cadian and overlapping fields of fire to get another +1 to hit. And you're rerolling 1s because Cadians to this day still reroll 1s. Which sounds great until you take into account that that is going to cost you 5 command points. That's a lot of command points. And also, you kind of might need to have spent a command point to actually get the thing to fire via a command point reroll. So realistically, when you shoot this thing, if you want it to do any damage, you're going to have to spend at least 3 and easily 6. Because you could also, 5 or 6, because you could also be looking at the Destroyan stratagem Firstborn Pride to do something similar. That gives you a +1 to hit. But it's a lot of command points. You're looking in ideal circumstances if all goes well, turn 2 and you roll a 6 and you've got a destroying one, the minimum command points you're going to want to spend on this thing is 4. Now, when you do roll, because you're going to spend Vortex Missile and Firstborn Pride on it if you're destroying. Now, that's a lot of command points. Now, it does also mean that it can jump to other units on a 3+, but it's not that guaranteed, and it's only D3 mortal wounds when it jumps to another unit. You know, and yes, you do on a 6. You can, if you shoot at a knight on a 6, you get to do another D6 mortal wounds. But again, it's just too unreliable. It's too unreliable. But the problem is that the Deathstrike is in a bit of a catch-22, because if Games Workshop made it more reliable, they'd either have to make it a lot of points, or they'd have to make it less powerful. So it's unfortunately they've kind of backed themselves into a corner, because no one's going to spend a huge amount of points on a one-shot weapon, because it could always just mess up, and you kind of want to give it stats that are fitting for a weapon of, well, what's meant to be a mini nuke. So it's a bit of a tricky one. I'm not sure how Games Workshop could fix it, I'll be honest with you. But overall, it does not have great potential. Unfortunately, it's too unreliable, and the damage output when you do shoot it is mediocre to okay. It's not really very good, and you have to sink too many command points into it to really get its points back. I mean, if you shoot this thing at a squad of Primaris and it all goes normal, the average is you'll kill 1.5 Primaris Marines. It's not really worth it. And you have to compare everything to Primaris these days, because that is the standard of which 40k is pretty much play-tested at. And, well, not play-tested at, is built around these days. It used to be Tactical Marines, now it's Primaris Marines. So what battlefield role, what tactical uses can you get out of this thing? Well, it does have some use as a distraction card effects and a bit of an intimidation unit. Your opponent will, against less experienced players, they will shoot it because it looks intimidating, and if you can big it up and say, oh, it's a mini nuke, then people will want to target it. And experienced players will know that they can't really leave it on the field because it could potentially do some serious damage to them. It's got the potential to do 18 mortal wounds at the end of the day. If it all goes off, it's got the potential to do 18 mortal wounds. It's never going to, but it could. So it has some function as a distraction card effects and as an intimidation unit. Realistically, though, guys, it's a meme unit. It's a bit of a meme. It's a bit of fun. You don't take this in a competitive game. You take it in your once-a-year gaming group, end-of-the-year big apocalypse battles. That's what it's there for. It's for fun. So that's it, guys. That is the Deathstrike missile launcher. I've finally covered the one unit I said I never wanted to do, and I hope that I've actually done it justice. I did consider just doing a bit of a meme video and just ranting about the Deathstrike and how just shockingly bad it was. But you know what? I thought, new channel, look, new style, professionalism, clean and tidy to the end. Let's give the Deathstrike the tactics video it deserves. So there you go, guys. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you think there's anything that I've missed, please keep it to yourself. No, I'm joking. Put it down in the comment section below. And of course, I'll see you guys next time.